Welcome to This Week in Morgan County. I'm your host, Russell Mokhiber. Our guest this week is John Isner. John is a candidate for House of Delegates in the 59th District of West Virginia. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Where is the 59th District?
59th District, I always tell people it's probably one of the most gerrymandered districts in our state, but it runs from Hedgesville all the way to parts of Berkeley Spring, has a little bit of Martinsburg and Spring Mills attached to it. So if you look at it on a map, it kind of just wiggles. You'll see it in and out.
And you live in Hedgesville?
I do. Mm-hmm.
The current delegate is Sarah Blair. She's retiring to go to school. Mm-hmm. And so it's an open seat.
Yeah.
You're running as a Democrat. There are two Republicans, Tally Reed and Larry Kump, who are running in the May 8th primary, but you're running unopposed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. You born and raised where, what work of your parents, and how you got here?
Sure. I am a born and raised West Virginian. I'm originally from Parkersburg. I decided that I would move 5 hours away from home to go to college. I went to Shepherd for my undergrad. My then fiance, but my wife now, and I both went there. At a very, very early stage in our Shepherd tenure, we decided that the Eastern Panhandle was where we would kind of settle down. We went to law school 3 years, and the day we graduated is the day that we moved back here. There was no way that we were going to live anywhere else. So that's exactly what happened. We moved back, and we plan to never leave.
What's your current work?
Sure. I teach at Shepherd University. I teach political science and criminal law.
I saw on your website that you talked about being raised by a single mom.
Yeah.
And how that opened your eyes to poverty and the plight of working people in West Virginia. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. This is kind of, I always get nervous to talk about my mom. My mom is a very special person to me. But yeah, she, at a very early age in my life, I was around 5 years old, my father left. He was addicted actually to opioids and alcohol, and it created a very domestic violence household, and we had a lot of terrible things go on. And finally, my mom got the courage to walk away from that. Financially, it put us in a very bad place, but she knew that she had to do what she had to do. So 4 kids and her moved into a 1-bedroom house, and we made it by. So.
What made you want to go to law school?
My mom actually, just bad luck after bad luck, I guess. We finally got on our feet, and she was working as a occupational therapist assistant, and she signed a contract to stay in her work, and the next day the contract was terminated by the new owners of the facility. And she had no repercussions at first until we got an employment law attorney, and I was allowed to work on the case with him to kind of save some money and just look over documents. And I found a pretty good document, and that was the day I fell in love with employment law, and I thought, might as well go to law school. And
what led you to want to run for House of Delegates?
Well, unfortunately, my story is not unique. I wish it was one of those stories that no one else had to go through, but West Virginians go through it all the time. And I saw all of the things that were going on for the past, 4 years, especially the last 2, and I just thought to myself, we can't do this anymore. We need somebody who's going to be a friend to West Virginia workers and to the people who don't have the money to go out and buy elections or buy people. And so I decided I'd make this a very community-oriented election or campaign, and just went with it.
You on your website also you talk about poverty in West Virginia. What's your experience with it? What did you observe? And because a lot of people are blind to the poverty around us.
Yeah.
So what do you see in terms of poverty in the Eastern Panhandle specifically?
Well, I mean, I think going from Berkeley County into Morgan County, you'll see it's kind of like here's a super nice house followed by a dilapidated house. Here's a super nice house followed by a dilapidated house. And only people pay attention to the super nice houses. We just pass by the dilapidated because we're not willing to look at that. That's a not in my backyard type thing. But Going through it as a kid, I was very upset about going through poverty, but going through it now, I'm very thankful because I can kind of understand where people are coming from when they say, hey, these benefits aren't being taken advantage of. Like, this is something I have to have because if not, X, Y, and Z would happen. I know what it's like to have to live on government assistance because I grew up in a single parent household. I know what it's like to have to worry about whether or not my siblings are going to eat. I mean, there were times that my mom didn't eat because there was only enough food for 4 of us. So, I mean, I got to watch that growing up. And that kind of put me in a place where I am very thankful for what I have today. And it's really because of, community backing and people were helping my mom and, we got through it.
What could you do as a member of the House of Delegates to make things better for the people?
Sure. I mean, one thing that has really bothered me probably, over the last 10 years, there's a big focus on job creation, but there's not a focus on what I call career creation. We focus on creating jobs that don't guarantee full-time work, don't guarantee good pay, don't guarantee benefits, when in actuality we should start focusing on creating careers that people can build into and start to have a great foundation for their family. And that's what we have to do going forward. And that's just part of it. I mean, you start to look at things like the opioid addiction and things like that. That's a huge indicator of poverty right there, and something that we have to kind of work on to stop the cycle of poverty, because that's something that we've ignored.
We reported recently on a study that's found that West Virginia was #1 in overdose deaths. What can be done about it?
Sure. I am very tired of the way that we deal with people with addictions. First off, addiction is a heck of a punishment. And to constantly throw these people into prison and say, look, go do this and you might get better, there's no real help. Or we stick them in facilities that get them clean for 30 days, and then we say, okay, good job, keep doing what you're doing, we'll see you around. And that's what, we don't provide them with things like coping mechanisms. We don't provide them with mental health, actual help that they can go out and have assistance. We don't give them a lifeline. We just say, hey, NA's there. Maybe you could help, maybe that could help, or
NAs.
Yeah, narcotics, but
Narcotics Anonymous.
yeah. There's NA and there's A. There's a lot of programs, but that doesn't actually create real change for them. I mean, the 30 days is great, don't get me wrong, but we have to have programs there that are developed, and I think they can be developed at the state level and rolled out through the county levels, because every county in our state's different. But we have to do things. We have to employ mental health specialists. We have to employ addiction specialists to do these things. We have to stop guessing.
The teacher's strike was an amazing political transformation in West Virginia. Over 2 weeks, it went from the legislature and the governor saying all we can afford is 1%, to pretty much the legislature and the governor saying whatever you want, and they gave them 5%. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of funny when money miraculously shows up, right? But I mean, it happened because community action. I mean, I talk about all the time in political science classes to my students. If you want anything done, you have to have a group of people that are willing to do the things that need to be done, and they stick together through the process. And that's exactly what you saw. You didn't see people jumping back into schools. You didn't see teachers, on the border and saying like, I don't know if I'm going to keep doing it. No, they were full force at it, and they were not going to stop until they got what they deserved. And that's the type of political change that you start to see kind of go across the country now. Like, it started in West Virginia, now it's in Arizona and Oklahoma, and these people are like, wait a second, we can do this? We can actually fight and get what we need? That's what, West Virginians have done this before. This isn't surprising, but it's great to see that it's happening now.
And I heard today that the Oklahoma teachers are on strike this morning.
Yeah.
And they took their inspiration from West Virginia.
Yeah.
What in this coming election, do you think that this will be a party issue, that the Democrats will gain as a result of the teacher strike? Because I know that you believe in nonpartisanship, pretty much. That you want to put aside ideology and just talk about how to help the people of West Virginia. But in this election, will the teacher strike be an issue? And if so, how?
Yeah, I think it'll definitely be an issue. You're seeing things that have never been done before. For instance, there is now a 55-strong political action committee. That's never been done before. I mean, that's at the teacher level that people are getting involved. You're seeing that endorsements that mean a whole lot more than they ever have. I mean, WVEA and AFT have been big endorsements in the past, but now one of the first questions I get if somebody is a teacher is, are you endorsed by WVEA? Which luckily I am. You know, I'm very happy to have that endorsement. I think it's going to be big simply because that is now going to be at the forefront of those people's minds when they say, look, who's my friend and who can I send to help me, you know, so this doesn't happen again. Because they don't, I mean, who wants to stand outside in 30-degree weather holding a sign? No one. They did it because they saw that it was necessary, and now they're going to choose people that doesn't happen again because they want to take care of the kids and they want to teach. That's all they want.
Now, you mentioned that the 59th is a gerrymandered district. That means that it tilts heavily Republican.
Yep.
That's why they did it that way. And what makes you think that as a Democrat you can break through?
Well, I think that's probably the one thing my wife wondered was, why are you so crazy to do this? And that's also kind of why I preach nonpartisanship. I mean, if you look at me, there are things about me that are Democratic ideals. I mean, I'm very pro-union, pro-worker, and things like that. But there are also things about me that you could call conservative if that's what you want. I mean, I think that we protect things like the Second Amendment and things like that. I grew up in a very kind of conservative household, and it was odd that I became a Democrat, I think. But it's one of those things, we got to put that aside, and that's why I'm knocking on everybody's door. That's why I'm writing letters, just so they get to know me.
You had the option of running as an independent. You could have run as an independent. Why did you choose to run as a Democrat?
Because I still lean Democrat. I mean, it's not one of those things where I was like, well, pick one or two. I mean, if anything, I could have taken the easy road out and just registered as a Republican, because Republican are, there's far more of those in this district. But I chose to be truthful and chose to say, look, I lean in a Democratic way, pro-union, things like that. But I'm willing to listen to ideas and willing to listen to people. And that's kind of what I've been telling everybody and trying to kind of harp on, because we have this such a negative thing going on in this nation that if you have a D next to your name, you have to think like this, and if you have an R next to your name, you have to think like this. So how do you plan to run your campaign? Give us some ideas of what do you have Sure.
going?
I'm going to knock on every door in the 59th district. You can
how many doors are there?
Some right around 6,400 doors. Not everybody votes, but I figure even if you don't vote and I win, I'm still going to be your delegate. So I might as well, you should be able to know who I am. You should be able to know where I live. You should have my phone number, so that you can call me and tell me, hey, this is what needs to be done, or I have an issue. So
you're going to be driving down back roads. Some of these roads are like a half mile long.
Yeah.
But you're going to actually go to
every
door.
Yeah, every door.
And give us a little idea how that is going to work. Where are most of the doors? Are they mostly in Hedgesville, or?
So there's a lot of them in Hedgesville, especially because Hedgesville runs from Berkeley into Morgan. So the primary source of the voters and things like that will be in Hedgesville, but there's a ton in Berkeley Springs that are spread out, and plus.
Well, it's South Morgan County.
Yes.
So
yes.
It's south of the ballpark.
Yeah.
And that's a more rural area.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll plan on knocking on every one of them, and hopefully they'll have me and be okay with me talking to them. And
what do you do if you're confronted by a nasty dog?
A nasty dog? Oh, I haven't had that yet, but I hopefully will wear tennis shoes so I can run. I mean, I'm a big guy, so it's probably not too fast, but the dog's got an advantage on me. Let's just say that.
Other than let's talk opioids, because I saw opioids was one of your issues that you listed, and it's a big issue. What would you do in the legislature to directly address that issue?
Well, I mean, I think the number one thing has to be us starting to deal with the addiction process and what's going on, like what is causing these people to turn to this. That's something that we've kind of forgotten about. I mean, if you look at past legislation, it's always been about how do we stop the addiction now that it's already started. But we never look at what are the reasons why addiction begins.
And what are the reasons?
Well, poverty's number one. I mean, poverty is huge because people are out of work, they have nothing to do, they have no coping mechanism, so they turn to drugs. Another is almost over-prescribed opioids and things like that, which I think that they've tried to enact different policies to fix that now. But I think it also always circles back to us helping people when they have addiction so it doesn't become a gateway. Because you hear it all the time. I started with X and now I'm at Z, right? I started with a certain type of drug, it became not as effective, and then I heard this was more effective, so I got this, and then it became more, and
Well,
that's...
let me ask you about poverty, because
Sure.
there are a number of ideas floating at the national level, not
Yeah.
necessarily West Virginia level. Let's go through each one of them. One is, I read it was in the article today about guaranteed jobs program. Every American should be guaranteed a job. This is something that Franklin Delano Roosevelt talked about. I believe a Supreme Court justice says it's embedded in the 14th Amendment. How would you stand on that, a guaranteed jobs program?
Well, I mean, I think it's necessary. I mean, look at what the West Virginia legislature just did. They passed a 20-hour work week to get benefits. So, I mean, if you're not guaranteeing people's jobs, you're no longer guaranteeing them benefits either. And so if you're not going to actively work to give these people jobs, how can you pass legislation like that?
What about single-payer national health insurance, Medicare for all? And 121 members of the House of Representatives, U.S., have signed on to it.
Sure. I think that personally at the state level, there's not much that I can do. I think if it was to go into play, if for instance it passed, I would ensure that West Virginia is set up for it, because that's the one thing that worries me about single payer, is that it passes and then the West Virginia legislature tries to do things to almost burden it and make it look like this big terrible thing, because personally I don't know a lot about the actual dynamics of single payer. My capstone when I got my political science degree was on universal health care, but I did a comparative look at all of the different countries that had implemented it versus the United States. It's doable. It's going to be hard for the first few years. I mean, I think everybody kind of knows that in terms of financially speaking. But if it's passed, then I'll do everything I can to ensure West Virginians are taken care of.
Living wage.
That's got to be addressed. I mean, we're at the point now where it's a cycle of poverty. We're giving people jobs, but they're not making enough money.
And the other one, which is sort of has a right-left support, Richard Nixon supported it, something called universal basic income, where everybody gets a basic income.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you basically get rid of the poverty programs and replace it with this basic income of about $10,000 a year.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with that is, I think that if we were to just made our system better as it is right now and stopped rolling it back, that wouldn't be a need. But if we keep rolling it back, that's something to look at, because now we're rolling it back so much that we have to make sure that we're not pushing people into poverty even more. Because those programs weren't set up for people to constantly live on. They were set up to help people get to the next level, and we haven't done that well enough. We've given them benefits and stopped there. We haven't helped them with actual job security. We haven't helped them with creating careers.
One issue that's going to be an issue in the Republican primary is Tally Reid claiming she lives in the district while others saying she doesn't. Mm-hmm. We reported on that recently. Will that, if Tally Reid gets the nomination, will that be an issue in the campaign? Will you make that an issue in the campaign?
I expect, or I hope that she is being truthful. I'm at that point now that if this is an issue going forward, she needs to step up and say something and say, I did this the wrong way. She needs to be truthful, because if you're starting out with a lie in a political campaign, there's a problem there. And we're at a point now that if the voters know something that I don't, because I've never met Tally, I've not had that opportunity. I don't know where she lives. But if somebody knows something, step up and do something. Like I said, I don't have enough information to do anything on it. I pray and hope that she's telling the truth. But if she's not, then this is a major issue going forward, because she needs to live here.
If people wanted more information about your campaign, give us the Facebook, the website.
Sure.
How they can get it.
Website, JohnIsnerWV.com. Facebook is just facebook.com/JohnIsnerWV. I have a twitter.com/JohnIsnerWV. And I also give my phone number out, my personal, 304-991-0714. Call me anytime. That's what delegates should be doing. They should be open to you, and I plan to be.
And look for John Isner coming to your door.
Yes. Please open the door and at least talk to me.
Thank you, John, so much.
Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
And thank you for watching This Week in Morgan County.